Welcome to the Winter Fantasy Coat tutorial. Bring in a default avatar from the library window. Double-click the avatar to import her into the scene. Change the library window to the modular configurator. Open the file location Women, T-shirt, and Set in Sleeve Style. Select the blocks for body set in round and sleeve set in long, so we have a long sleeve shirt with a round neck. Arrange the sleeves. Use arrangement points if necessary, especially if your sleeves are colliding with your avatar. On to adjusting it into a princess seam dress. Before adjusting, remove the modular relationship from the garment. Create an internal line down the middle of the center back. Cut and sew that center back line so you have two symmetrical pieces. Add a segment point onto the waistline for making a dart, reducing the waist width in the back of the pattern. Draw the princess style line with the Line 3D Pattern tool. Convert those lines to internal shape using the Edit 3D Line Pattern tool. Adjust the fit as needed. Cut and sew the princess lines. Make adjustments to the fit. We don't want it to be too tight or too loose. Next, we start the skirt portion of this dress. Selecting the hemlines of the t-shirt. Pull down to make a long skirt. Control A and Control H to strengthen all of your patterns. Adjust the shape of the skirt. Make sure your particle distance is 20 millimeters. Making the train of the skirt next. As you make changes, your patterns may not match up anymore, so you can use the Change Length tool to make them match, such as the side front line here I'm going to use to change and fix that. Press C to select the Edit Curvature tool. Adjust the width and shape of the skirt as you see fit. Press Ctrl A and Ctrl H to unstrengthen all of your patterns. Next, onto editing the medieval sleeves. Add segment points to the elbow line. Widen the sleeve at the hem or where the wrist is. You can edit the pressure values to adjust the drape as needed so that it can lay flat. Adjust the elbows from sharp angles into curves using the Smooth Curve tool. You can also be specific by right-clicking with the Smooth Curve tool to open up the dialog box. Next, create the cuffs. On to making the hood. Reset to default layout. Add the male hoodie ZPack file. We'll use this as a base. Delete the patterns except for the hood pattern itself. Adjust the neck and hood lines so that you can start creating your fantasy hood. Sew the necklines into the dress starting from the back towards the front. Using the Edit Sewing tool, right-click the sewing lines and choose Add Point to Pattern on End within that menu. Delete all curve points. On to adjusting the hood shape. With the excess, we can make the trim of the hood. Delete all pins if you have extra pins at this point. Next, creating the skirt trim. strengthen the trim of the hemlines. Adjust the pressure to 1 if you want to use your hemlines to adjust the drape of your skirt. Check for matching hemlines and make adjustments where you need to. Make the princess seam on the back. For reference, split the shoulder line and hemline in half. Use those segment points as your anchors for your princess seam. Divide a front side panel using the Cut and Sew option with the right click. If your waist points aren't in line, feel free to adjust them. Cut and sew that princess line. Divide the back side pattern as well. Merge the side skirt patterns that you had just cut out into one pattern. Then adjust the hemline. On to creating the guidelines or internal lines for our top stitches. Create your top stitch line with the internal polygon line tool. Then cut and sew the center front line. We do need to make this into a coat, so we will split this into two. Add a front placket or an overlap for your coat, which will be a 12.5mm overlap. Sew the center front lines together for now. Create the buttons next. Copy and paste the button with the Select or Move Button tool, then when pasting, right-click instead of left-click to open the Button Paste dialog. This way you can select the intervals between those buttons, and how many you want. Open the button window to make some changes. Then select the button item and the plus sign and change the shape of the button. There are multiple decorative buttons that you can choose from, so pick your favorite. Here is where you can also change the color of your buttons. Next, select all of your buttons and right-click, choose Duplicate as Buttonhole to Symmetric Pattern. Then, using the Fasten Button tool, highlight all of those buttons again, and with the arrows, put them through the buttonholes. Next, we're going to select our fabric. There are some fur fabrics in the library as a default, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the Angora fur. So drag and drop the fur Angora fabric into the empty space in the fabric window to create a new fabric item. Drag and drop the wool Melton fabric into the empty space in the fabric window as well. Select all of the body items, not the trim items, and choose the wool Melton fabric. Then do the same thing to the trim patterns and assign the fur Angora fabric. Copy the wool Melton fabric, and we're going to make a separate color. Then adjust your fabrics. Toggle on desaturation in the texture option and change the color of the fabric. This way you can select lighter colors and you're not tied to that specific wool Melton shade. For the hood, we want a fur-lined hood, so layer clone under on those hood patterns. And remove the linked editing, then flip the normals on the inside hood pattern so the outside faces the inside. This way the entire hood is fur-lined. Next, purchase pose and top stitch items from the Store tab. There are a lot of free items here. I already have the pose loaded, and then I'm going to go over to the top stitch items and select two of my favorite top stitches that I want to use here. These items are free, so make sure to download the purchased items. Load in the downloaded pose file. This does work for the default avatars only, so make sure you're using a default avatar. Then open the top stitch window and add those purchased top stitches as top stitch file items. Next, place your top stitches as you see fit. Once all the top stitches are in place, feel free to change the color as well.